to have different types of content on the channel. This new series, I wanted to focus on honoring a great player, an even better person, and Grandmaster Julio Becerra. I have known Julio for the better part of a decade and a half. We first met in Atlanta at the Emory Castle Chess Camp, and not only is he a fantastic instructor, I can't say enough positive things about Julio. And you know you've made it when you got your Wikipedia page. And I wanted to say a few things from here and give some updates, as I don't think this has been touched in a while. But Julio is a Cuban-born American chess grandmaster who lives in Miami. And Julio was born and grew up in Havana, Cuba. Learned to play chess at 13. Julio went to the Chess Academy in Havana frequently to play games with others to improve. He became a grandmaster at the age of 23 in 97. Julio won the Cuban championship both in 96 and 98 and played in the chess Olympiads in 94, 96, and 98. He remained in the U.S. in 1999 after playing the FIDE Knockout World Championship in Las Vegas, where he moved around a bit until he settled Miami permanently in 2004. He was an MVP of the United States Chess League in 2006, and he became Florida State champion in 2006 and held that title through 2009. He won his 8th Florida State championship in 2016 and just won another Florida State championship in 2021. So he, absolute beast, still going. And I'll say, along with the Miami Sharks, when U.S. Chess League years later became the Pro Chess League, we ran the team, the Miami Champions, and Julio was also a force to be reckoned with on our team, which we'll see in one of our future games. As a user on chess.com, Julio was noticed by many for his willingness to play games against people considerably weaker than himself, thus giving many novice and amateur players the chance to play against a grandmaster. As a result of this, a fan club was set up in his honor. You can also find on the channel where I've played Blitz in person with Julio, and he was gracious enough to come visit at the time I was teaching at Franklin Academy in Palm Beach Gardens. He came and played games with kids and adults for hours. He's just a fantastic ambassador of the game, and I'm happy to have him in my neck of the country. Also, as a note, Julio also has an even score against Nakamura, and so easily two of the top players over the past decade in the United States. Now, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in to our first game I wanted to show. And we're going to take a look in this series with 2 games with Julio having white and 2 where he's having black. And I really wanted to showcase his style. And to me, I feel that he's an absolute monster when it comes to preparation. The games where I found that he hammered his contemporaries were when they tried to get off the beaten path with him in some odd line. And Julio will go toe-to-toe, where he's just as dangerous in nasty, aggressive, calculating tactical positions as he is positional chess. So let's get this first taste from a game from 2009, the U.S. Championship, where Julio has white against the then rated 2465 Ray Robson, who was on the come-up. As we now know, Ray is easily in the top 10 players in the U.S., so definitely he was stamped for success. So let's see how Julio did it. We have ourselves a open Sicilian and e6. Now, already e6 is one of those Sicilians. I believe Ray was known for playing this at the time and making it easier to prepare for him in a key game like this in the U.S. Championships. And the Scheveningen Sicilian is best met with a dangerous carries attack. And this is one of the significant differences with the Najdorf. And the Najdorf really picked up popularity because you're getting this extra move of commitment by white. Say, for instance, bishop e3 is the English attack, whereas e6 being played now, it doesn't have the same oomph as that g4 immediately, as we see here with the carries. And there are multiple lines, and let me show you, for instance, one of the main lines. And the reason why the Scheveningen Sicilian or Scheveningen has fallen out of popularity. Say h6, h4, knight c6, rook g1, h5, takes, and bishop g5. And this has been followed, I want to say, around 1,000 times. And already modern engines have white over a full point edge. So it's kind of ridiculous when looking at certain openings that have gone out of fashion, and it's the reason why. Modern engines are just putting it to them. So after g4, Ray went with a bit of an offshoot move with e5. And as I stated in the intro, Julio is devastating when it comes to surprise lines. And without a doubt, he plays the best move here. Bishop b5 check. And this is another one of those significant differences between the Najdorf and the Scheveningen. Without the pawn being on a6 covering b5, we have this in-between move. We're able to trade and then get this great square on f5 for the knight. Now, a calculator or an open Sicilian player needs to be aware of what happens after g6. So this is the first stopping point, or a good point to question, what do you do with white here if you have the position? So hopefully you pause your video. If not, I'm continuing. Well, a knight for a knight, let's attack. And after knight g8, love this next move. Knight d5, where we sack the piece. Bishop f6. The bishop is immune to capture due to the fork. And after knight e7, this was good enough following a previous game for white to go on and win. So it's important to know these little sidelines if you're going to be playing this nasty stuff. But after knight f5, Ray decided to go with h5. Capture. And this is one of the few blemishes on the game. I really don't have many notes after this, as the level of play by white was so strong. Knight g3 is a bit better, according to modern engines, to harass the knight immediately. You capture, you fix my pawn structure, so it's easy to understand that black wants to post up. We try to get rid of the post, and then make sure the forward squares of the knight are covered. In Steinitz rule being, if you take away the forward squares of the knight can't really do much. Knight c6, bishop e3, continually fighting for those key squares. And white's going to be, in the long term, playing against that weak pawn, and he's got open files to work with a G and D file once he castles queenside. So coming back to the main game, we get something very similar. Bishop e3, queen f3, followed by knight g3. And king b1. That's such a natural move, and I often get this question, well, why do we play king b1? One, it's a feel-good move. It gets off of the c1 h6 diagonal. It also gets off of the potential attack where a rook could go to the open file, and it's covering the a pawn so that if the knight inevitably jumps to d5, we're good to go. And I should make mention at this time that with this pawn structure for black, there is a hole on d5. And the dynamics of how to play this is pretty straightforward. White wants to always make sure that once he's putting a piece on d5, he's able to continue to capture back with a piece, not a pawn. If this pawn gets here, that d6 pawn is going to be protected, and it's going to be very hard to protect. Very hard to attack for white, I should say. Now, on the other hand, if I was to play knight d5, capture, rook takes, I can continually pile up on the d6 pawn. So understand this dynamic for both sides of the board if you're a Sicilian player. Castle queenside was played. Rook d2, one of the focal points is this d5 square, so it's easy to understand why white is doubling, looking to play rook h to d1. After knight f4, this stops this idea because we'll be having a problem with our pawn. So let's go ahead and get rid of that pawn so we don't have to worry about it. Loose pieces drop off, and we're taking it all the way to this ending. And this is kind of ridiculous to me because the position looks pretty solid. I feel like objectively before I knew the engine evaluation, I felt like black could hold this. He's got some weak pawns, but white's easily up a pawn and a half, according to the machine. And that's just creepy to me. Queen f3, and this is one of the areas of the game that Julio is best at, playing quickly and probing. And we're just going to see, gradually, we're just improving our pieces without risk. Well, we don't want to have to worry about our back rank, and b3. And this is going to be the best of our options, because the queen would still be covering that long diagonal. b3 blunts the queen, gives us a nice escape square for the king. Queen e2, king b2. We're in no hurry. Rook d3, he attacked the e-pawn. We're simply going to defend it. Queen d1, applying some steady pressure to that weak pawn. Black defends it. And around here, I was just thinking, looks like black can hold relatively. He really can. It's clean, man. It's clean the way he plays. Rook d2, a4, looking to, at some point, play a5, mess with the structure. Rook g6, queen e1, looking to shift at the right moment. Queen f1, like I said, just slow and steady. Absolutely no hurry to try to break through or do anything drastic here. You have the edge. Just slowly get more. Rook g1, queen c4, and after queen f6, said another good place to pause. What move would you make as white here? All right, hopefully you found the game-winning tactic with queen takes c7, whereas black would follow up and white would be a knight up. So a better question is, what would be better than queen f6 that was played in the game? And this really shows how much you can get out of this position, because still, my perception when looking at this game originally is white's better, but I don't know if it's enough. Knight d5, we try to break up the structure, and the black pieces are just simply out of play, where mate is soon to follow here in this, I'd say, roughly plus 10 position. And it's because the pieces are off sides. The black king was open and weak, ours is not. So this is our first game in the series of Grandmaster Julio Becerra.